Curtis. I own BirthWise Doula Services. I am a full spectrum doula. I'm a certified birth doula with Doula International. I specialize in traumatic birth, supporting women through anyone that also has a risk of a postpartum mood disorder. I specialize in unique postpartum care that allows and empowers women to go back into work and feel empowered once they complete going through postpartum and returning to work. I also make sure that I'm a certified childbirth educator, and I use a number of methodologies in my practice. I'm always willing to advocate, support, and help any woman who needs it, anytime they need it. I'm one of those people who had everything go wrong from the beginning. I was diagnosed with infertility for over 15 years before I was able to get pregnant with my daughter. I went through fertility treatment, and I just knew that maybe they figured it out. It sounded good, baby friendly, supporting. You took the tours and they looked great. It looked like a well-wrapped present. And I was like, okay, maybe you figured it out. And I had seen so many births in my youth supporting women, and I remember teen girls being told that they weren't strong enough to push, so they'd give them an episiotomy, not knowing what the consequences would be for their life. And I watched it all the way until I was probably 25 years old. Then it was my turn. And I got in there and I was ready to have my daughter, and she was stuck. And I'm telling them what I know. I need to be moved in this position, and they wouldn't do it. And they wouldn't do it. And they wouldn't do it. And 3 hours later, once I had a fever, it was an emergency. And they used forceps. I had a 4th-degree tear. I hemorrhaged and I almost died on that table. And I refuse to let another person that walks across my doorstep go through that. Because they should know better, because I know better. And if I'm a simple childbirth educator and a birth doula who simply reads and studies, how is it someone who spent so long in school and did everything right? You got the highest GPA of anybody to become a doctor. Why are you ignoring this? Why are you ignoring this? Why are you sending women home mutilated? Why are you sending them home broken and saying, well, you got a baby? Or maybe you didn't get a baby. Or now they don't even tell them about pelvic or physical therapy. They're all surprised. And then after they did that, lactation told me they couldn't help me because I had suffered infertility. It had nothing to do with that. I had another child. I wouldn't let him come near me. Unfortunately, I'm not the best in the room sometimes. I do my best to hold my composure, but at times, I just go, sure. No, that's great. Well, I went through it. They never mentioned, well, you hemorrhaged and you're iron deficient and this is why your milk is having an issue. Never brought it up, blamed it on something else. And so I had to fight to breastfeed my own child. I advocate and I study and I make sure I know how I can help you, because there's a part missing in our medical community. They may know the medical, they may know the emergency, they may know the symptoms, but they do not know how to take care of birthing women at all.
It's the care part.
It's the care.
It's the care part.
I know for me, one of the biggest things that has made me successful is that I believe in education. I know that in the healthcare institution, the thing that we respect most is their education, their intelligence, and what they're supposed to know. So I work diligently with every client. They already know. Anyone that comes to my door, the first thing I'm going to say is you got to do childbirth education. It's non-negotiable. And so when they go forward, regardless of what situation they find themselves in, emergency or not, they're educated, they're ready, they're prepared to ask questions, and so they trust me. They know that I shelter them, comfort them, and do everything that I can for them. But at times, we're going to work. It's a team effort. It's a collaborative effort. So we don't take away from what they're doing. But it is a bureaucratic system, which then takes away from the individualizing the situation. So they're ready. They're asking questions. They're armed. And they just look at me like, I did a good job. You did a good job. I don't have to do anything in that room when it comes to the advocacy part because they're ready. They walk in and you got a different patient. It's not that patient that you're going to be able to walk in and say, hey, do this. And they're going to go, why? Okay, well, what about this? Well, have you tried this? Well, what was this? And then and I have seen in the rooms, they get very upset. They get agitated. That's a lot of questions. And why she keep asking? And they look at me. I didn't say a thing. I said that 3 days ago. I didn't say it today. So my clients trust me. Once they talk to me, they respect my education. And I give them everything I have, every evidence-based practice, whether it is a miscarriage, whether it is induction, it doesn't matter. I let you know how you can handle it, and it's up to you to decide how you want to handle it. So you walk out feeling empowered and great. And if we run into a situation where they won't help you, then I will step in, right? Because we get to see those things. I had to see my friend go in losing her babies, and she's bleeding heavily, and they sent her home. Well, now we're going to use homeopathic and stop this because I'm not going to wake up tomorrow without you. So education, and it empowers you. I want everyone to know the more you educate yourself, you're on equal footing. You just do a different job. You can make better decisions. That informed decision making is everything, right? That way you can be okay with the outcome, but you can also know how to take care of yourself. There has to be balance. And the mass undereducating of our people has led to a systemic issue where we walk in these doors afraid or expecting good, not understanding that it's an entire system from the beginning with J. Marion Sims that started this with the mutilation and killing of Black women. Well, he didn't kill them, he mutilated them, he kept them alive. I don't know if that makes it better, but
absolutely doesn't.
I mean, history's like, well, he fixed this, right, after he took those 3 women and did surgeries on them repeatedly. Without anesthesia. Anesthesia wasn't common back then. I'm sure there was a cost issue, but now we figured it out. Now we just charge people too much to have babies and leave them torn and that, see, and that is how I've been successful. I'm passing on.
Okay.
What I would say to new doulas is always be willing to learn. You're going to have to be flexible. And even what you learn, you're going to have to bend. Because you have to use practical knowledge in order to be successful, right? There are best practices, and then there are the people that are in front of you. Some of these practices are not best for them. So you need, 1, the willingness to continue to study. You should always be involved in learning more. You need your community, but there is just so much more doula can do if she understands the relationship from a physiology standpoint, understands the relationship in the body from a hormonal standpoint, understands the endocrine, because there are a lot of things that come out of labor and delivery. It's not just the birth. It can be a mood disorder. It can be nutritional depletion. It can be a number of things, and you don't know why someone is having the issue that they're having, because you have to be willing to continue to learn. It is one body, it is one system, so it is all connected. So you can never stop learning, because new information, new evidence, new science is always going to be out there. You're not going to be able to keep up if you're not willing to continue to educate. I know that some people are against certification, but I will say this. There has to be an accountability system for our doulas in judging their knowledge. because some people go out and read the first page of the book and say they're doulas, and they put people in harm's way because they're trusting you to be able to assist them. And you're not, because in all honesty, you haven't done the work yet. This is an ongoing, if the community that you're serving is going into be served by a community that also constantly educates themselves and changes their practices, you have to be willing to also constantly educate. So you have to believe in the entire process and that it's one unit, one person, and they're all connected. So you don't get to like skip a part. And if that's too much, we understand. Just know that to be good at it, to really affect change, and to save people when they run across preeclampsia, when they run across miscarriage, when they run across bias, when they run across preterm, when they run across a mood disorder, you have got to be prepared to understand what you are looking at. If you don't, somebody else is going to fall through the cracks. And it doesn't mean you have to know what to do. You just have to know that there is something that needs to be done. Number one, birth is actually a very beautiful thing. It is a joyous, it is not this excruciating pain, fear-driven experience. It is actually a process. There is discomfort, but it is not anything that we believe it is to be. Part of our fear nature that has been indoctrinated into us is keeping us in a cycle of not being able to connect with our births. And these are things that we choose, right? This is not an illness. This is not, I'm sick. This is something that was chosen. It's a choice. So I look at my very pretty Kayla over there, which y'all can't see. And when I got to her on the first day, I got to meet her an hour before she was going in for induction. And she was terrified because of her first birth. And at the end, this woman high fives me on the table. And was like, oh my God. And I hear this over and over and over again. They go, it's real. This really happens. I'm like, yeah, this really happens. It's not a bad thing. And even with the newborns, it's the bad information on how to care for them. There is no bad baby. Babies are trying to tell you something in order to get you to care for them a certain way. There are no bad babies. There is no spoiling a baby. Right? Spoiling is a taught process that takes a long time. It ain't gonna happen in the first 30 days, y'all. That's not how that works.
Okay.
So this actually is all a fulfilling process. And it's supposed to be. Not just for mom, but for the entire family. And then we look at it, and when we take it away, we have consequences. You want to talk about why people act the way they do? It started at that birth. A lot of what happens in birth connects back to how people end up. Anyone who's taken any psychology training, it's like page 1 of how to create a serial killer. Like literally what you do. Take the baby away from the mother, you create a person that is mentally ill. It's page 1 of child psychology. It's like open book, page 1, paragraph 1, line 2, I don't know. But it's right there.
First page.
First page. It's the first page. Let's talk about what happened to. Okay. So you look at it, and then you get to hear mom say, I feel redeemed. Because we've been taught to be afraid. Everyone's walking into these births like, I'm going to hurt. It's going to hurt. It's going to tear me apart. And they're fearful. And the thing about it is, as an educator, that actually stops the positive flow of the childbirth. It doesn't allow the endorphins to happen, and so you do have a bad experience. And when you look at a lifespan of a person, one of the last memories to go is the birth, their birth. People with dementia, one of their last memories to go is the birth of their children. So we need to treat it a lot more sacred than we do. And fathers matter. They're not to be excluded or treated as an ornament in the room. This is a unit. This whole thing. So I want that narrative to change. Because, you know, I look at it and we look at people's behavior. You want to when people, you see the women who are so upset and they're like, why are they so angry at these men? They didn't do this part, but they're here to do it now because that birth mattered. The pregnancy matters. And the conversation, hopefully before, mattered. So this is a process. It's a life process. It's not just that day the baby is born. This is, you know, I'm not going to tell how old I am because that's a problem. But I get to be this age because someone did this for me, right? And then I get to have my children because I did that for them. And I get to live alongside them. This doesn't stop on that birthday. I will say one of the funniest things that happened to me at a birth was it was my first home birth, and the midwife's assistant hadn't made it yet. And the midwife looked at me and she said, I need you to call the time. I'm like, okay, I'm excited now because I'm already a big old cheerleader. I'm ready. I'm like, there's the baby. And the baby was being born in her water. And I'm like, okay, that looks different. Looks good. So the baby gets ready to come out. Baby's not all the way out. I yell the time out. I'm like, it's a deep. She's like, it's not. You early. I'm like, I'm sorry. Am I close though? Am I good? Okay. And I just love that because I really did. I think I announced that baby's birth like a minute earlier, a second or something. But I was so excited because the water suddenly burst. And I was just like, oh, that must mean that the baby. Yeah. She's like, no. I was like, oh, I'm not a midwife's assistant. I'm a doula. You might want to get somebody trained and keep in time, lest this baby be born early, according to me. And I really get to say, I've been very, very blessed that the vast majority of my clients are smiling, huge smiles, and are happy and just like, I did that. I was like, you did that. You got it. And I'm like, yes. And I'm the biggest cheerleader. Like, doesn't matter how many births, all these years later, I still am screaming louder than everybody else in the room. As soon as that baby is born, I'm like, oh. I forget. I am the biggest cheerleader. As soon as I see like head and shoulders, I'm like, yeah. You ready? I look at the moms. I go, you ready? You ready? Baby's coming. All right. And then I start screaming, and that's how they know the baby's born. I'm you know. So.
My name is Kayla. I live in Charlotte. And I know you guys have heard from all these amazing birth workers, but just from a client's point of view, the redemption that you feel, the safety, the peace that you feel when you seek out all of these people or people like them. And like Toni was saying, birth is supposed to be beautiful. Postpartum comes with its difficulties, but overall, it all should be beautiful. And Toni definitely helped me get my redemption birth because my first one did not go as well. But I'm here, I'm whole, and I'm at peace.